In this video, we're going to explore how to use text and labels in Excel. So we've cooked up a little example here that you might be in a real-world situation where you want to illustrate the subtotal, the tax, and the total amount to display on the screen. Now your boss looks at the spreadsheet and says, that's great, but I want it to actually look like this. I want it to say subtotal plus tax equals total. And you say, no problem. So you go back to your Excel spreadsheet and you want to make it look exactly like your boss said. So I say subtotal, and then here you want it to say plus tax. And now we've entered a problem because when I started typing plus tax, Excel automatically assumed, oh, you're using plus, you must be entering a formula. I'm going to interpret this as a formula, and now it's going to look for a cell that we've named tax, but we haven't named any cells tax. So it's coming back with an error message, name, which means you used a name. I couldn't find that name anywhere. So how do we fix this? Well, a little trick is to use the apostrophe, a single apostrophe. If you start typing with a single apostrophe, it tells Excel that what you've entered should be interpreted as just text. It should be interpreted as a label. Similarly, we're going to have a problem here. So if I try to type equals total, it doesn't know what total is. That actually looks like a formula. So what I want to do is use a single quote and then equals total. So this is one way. Sometimes if you are trying to enter something and Excel's misinterpreting it, forcing it to be text by using the apostrophe will be very helpful. Another way that we can use text in Excel is by using quotations directly. Now you may be familiar with air quotes or quotations in different contexts. For example, if I showed you this message, Billy is really smart, you would actually interpret that word smart to mean not smart or not literally smart. In Excel, it actually works kind of the opposite. So in Excel, we can actually use quotations to say this is text. Don't try to interpret it in a formula. And I'll show you where that's going to come in handy. So if I actually use the equal sign to say this is going to be a formula, and now I put a quote around something, it's going to say, okay, this is still a formula, but everything I put in the quote, interpret that as text. So I could say again, for example, equals total, and it's going to appear the same. The difference is this is now a formula where this was just text. Where does this really matter? So let's see a new example where that might be useful. You're familiar with the mathematical operators like plus and subtraction and multiplication. There's actually an operator that you can use working with text. It's called the concatenator operator, and it's the ampersand, and I'll show you how to use it. For example, I could say, instead of equals total, I could say your total amount is, I'm going to use the ampersand, and then what I'm going to say is actually reference the cell that shows what the total amount is. All right, and now we can see that it says a nice display at the bottom, your total amount is 113. So this might be something useful if you're going to be printing out your Excel spreadsheet to give as an invoice to a customer or something. We can even be a bit fancier and say something like, please pay in 30 days. All right, well, with the concatenator operator, if you look at it here, the little ampersands, what that says is glue together these two things. Okay, it's officially called a concatenator operator. There's actually a concatenate function which does a very similar thing, but most people just use the concatenator operator. All right, now there are functions that can be used with text and not just numbers. So for example, in this case, contents of D5 are actually a number, not text. So if I force it to be text, I use the text function, and it comes up here to show us that it converts a value to text in a certain number format. I'm going to say convert the text in D5 to use the format $, and then show 2 periods. Okay, this looks a little unusual, but now we can see how it actually formatted this text here. Your total amount is now $113.00. Please pay in 30 days. So text is an example of a function that takes a number and converts it to a text in a specific format. That's useful if you want to use it inside of a sentence like this. There's other interesting functions. For example, I could say upper, and then I could say, what's the uppercase of this? Okay, so maybe if they don't pay in 25 days, we yell at them and say, hey, you're supposed to pay in 30 days or something like that. So you can yell at someone. You can also convert things to lowercase. You can also do things like, let's take the left of this, and I only want the first 20 characters. And it tells me the left-hand side. Or I could use the right. Or I could calculate something in the middle. I could say, give me the middle of this text starting at character number 10 and give me 10 characters. All right, so if you count in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 10 characters, L space amount, this actually doesn't. So the mid, left, and right can be used sometimes to tease out parts of a text. And these are all, again, examples of formulas that use text. And here's some of the other ones that we can use. All right. An interesting one is find. All right. So this says it finds the position of a character or another text within other text. All right. And so where this might be useful, for example, is say you have some email addresses, bob@uwaterloo.ca. And we also have sally@uwaterloo.ca. And where we might do is say we want to extract just the name from that particular piece of text. So what I can do first is say find ampersand in that text. All right, and you'll notice that it said, okay, in this case the ampersand is at position 4, in this case the ampersand is at position 6. So that's working great. And now what I can use is left, so find the left of that cell, C13, and then the number of characters I actually want to keep is the number at the ampersand minus 1. So this is a little fancy. I'm going to review this before I hit enter. I'm saying first find the ampersand in cell C13, subtract 1 from it, and then I want to keep the leftmost of that many number of characters. And here, for example, we can see that we've got Bob and Sally. So we were able to extract part of a piece of text. And those are some examples of working with strings in Excel.